Good evening. I'm just jumping on super quick tonight so that we can talk about one forgiveness affirmation and then two things that you can say instead of I can't afford it. So the affirmation that I wanted to work with tonight is that I forgive myself for creating financial experiences that leave me wanting. And we have gotten into such a habit from the time that we were little of hearing, oh, I can't afford it, or we can't afford it, when a lot of times we really could afford it, or our parents could afford it, but they felt like if they told us that they could afford it, then they'd have to buy something, and it was just easier to say, well, I can't afford it, than it is to say no. Totally own that I was one of those people. I used to say that all the time. And when I heard, there was a woman, her name's Carol Tuttle, when I heard her first address that, I was like, guilty as charged. And I didn't like that because it was totally true. I was saying it out of not having an ability to say no because I had no boundaries, and I felt like I was responsible for providing every little whim and desire. And so, but if I said that I couldn't afford it, it was super easy. And I was like, oh, we can't afford it, or oh, not this week. So it was interesting because it really got me aware of it. And I started making very specific choices to say, well, I don't want to use my money to spend on that right now. If you would like to buy something like that, then you can use your money, you can save up your money and spend that. And it was interesting because my son never wanted, like very rarely ever wanted to save up his own money for it. And I started thinking, well, if he doesn't want it enough to save it for himself, then he doesn't want it enough for me to spend my money on it either. So, but it was really a difficult thing for me to switch over to that because it was such a habit, and it was such a bad habit to just say, oh, well, we can't afford it, and I had to start making choices and just saying, I don't want to spend my money on that right now. And other times it was like, especially if it was something little and dinky, I thought, you know what, that's fun. If I can spend my money on that or something. Or it was interesting because during that time, I actually found like I enjoy spending money on things that taste good. I like not necessarily just food, but just things that are like an enjoyable experience to my taste buds or to my nose, those kinds of things. I like that. And so for me, it was kind of like, I was like, oh, do you want, some of this? And he's like, no, he just wasn't into food. And so it was just this thing was like, it wasn't worth it for him for me to spend it on that. And so then I was like, I would feel all disappointed because I was willing to afford to spend money on it. But I knew if I did, it wasn't going to be worth anything because it didn't matter to him. So anyways, so that's one of the things, the affirmation is I forgive myself for creating experiences that leave me wanting. That has been a pattern in my life. I'm finding like, oh, I really want this thing, but I don't have money to participate, or I don't have money to buy the thing that I want, or feeling like I have to save up like literally pennies and nickels to be able, for like a long time, to be able to like get something that we need, and that doesn't even leave room for the wants. And so it's this interesting dynamic, and recognizing how much that thought process of we can't afford it plays into that. And I love one of the things that Carol Tuttle had talked about when I first listened to her is she talked for the longest time about, oh, we need to stop saying we can't afford it, but she never really gave anything to do in place of it. And recently, just like about not even a year ago, I actually was listening to something of hers, and she had a really good replacement for it where she said, you can replace that with, I can afford to believe that I'm worth having that, or I can afford to believe that I can have that experience. I can afford to believe I can be supported in creating, these are like kind of my takes on what she talked about. And then as I was listening to an interview with the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't know if I had mentioned that the other day or not. I think I did in one of my posts, but it wasn't a video. So the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talked about how like his rich dad, which was his friend's dad, that he kind of considered a second dad, how he would say, no, you need to not say, I can't afford it. Instead, say, how can I afford it? And I thought that was super interesting because just in the last couple of days since I've been reapplying these principles of recognizing that there's these things that I really would like to have, and I know that I'm, you know, I can afford to believe that I'm worth having those experiences or taking those classes or you know, just having the things that I'm wanting, that I've been in that mode, and that's been good. But it's been interesting because since I heard that interview, I actually have done the second step to it, where in addition to affirming that I can believe that I can afford something or afford to be supported in something, I've also added the question of how can I afford to, you know, pay for this class or to have this thing that it is that I'm wanting. And it's been really, really interesting because the answers haven't even all come through me, because I've just been putting it out there and allowing that inspiration and divine guidance to bring an answer back to me. And it's been fascinating because 2 days in a row now, my husband has approached me with, hey, you know, no pressure, but have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this? And the one that he suggested yesterday, I was willing to hear it, but it didn't feel correct to me. But then he made a suggestion today, and it felt really good to me. And so I'm super excited to explore that further, because that could be an answer to the how can I afford to do this other thing. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. It's a really important habit to break. Stop saying, I can't afford it or we can't afford it, and start owning your truth of, I'm choosing not to spend my money on that. If this is important to you, then you can either save your money or it will find its way to you in some way. And for, you know, especially with kids, a lot of times it's like maybe it finds their way to them for a birthday present or a Christmas present, and it's just a matter of patience. Or maybe it's something where they do extra chores for it, or some things like that. And there were actually a couple of things, like with my son, as I had started saying these things where I was no longer willing to spend my money on things that I didn't feel like were important, that if it was super important to him, I would actually make a compromise and I'd say, well, I'm not willing to spend my money on it. However, if this is that important to you, and because of this situation, I will buy it, and then you can save your money, and you don't get to have it until you save up your money and then get it from me. And if that ever would have failed, like if that would have gone not well, where I would have bought it and then he would have lost interest partway, I wouldn't have done it again. But the couple of times that we did do that, he was very much, no, I really, really want this. And he would like work really hard to like earn the extra money that he needed to be able to pay for it. And then I would give it to him. And it was a win-win. And I loved that. So those are my my tips for tonight, and I hope that that's helpful to you. Our words are incredibly powerful, and we seed our tomorrow with our thoughts and our words and our feelings of today. And that is one of the biggest ones with your finances that you can possibly get rid of and replace with what's true, which is you can afford it. If you don't have the money to literally afford it right now, you can afford to believe that you're worthy of having it. You can afford to believe that you can be supported in receiving that, and let God, let his helpers in angels help create that experience and bringing it to you. You just never know how that's going to come. And take yourself out of that and work through inspiration instead of trying to figure out the details. And you can have those experiences. So I'm super excited because right now I'm going to be focusing on, I've got a specific class I really want to take to further my my herbal certification. And so I'm going to start really focusing on that. And I've got actually a couple of other things that I'd really like to get, just like more decorations. I'd love some more plants for my office. I am really having a plant fetish, and I just want to have green plants everywhere. It's been really interesting. There's something about it that I'm not understanding quite yet, but I'm excited to have that understanding finally. All right, I'm gonna go. I've got chickens that I need to put to bed before it gets dark because I do not like going through the icy snow right now to get to the eggs. So you guys have a fantastic night, and I might be on tomorrow. I'm actually not sure, probably Thursday. So you guys have a great night. Love you. Bye-bye.